Hello again, folks. Today I'm making some simple and easy to install T-handle tree mounts for GoPros to help get close-in footage when filming the hunt. The T-handle design should make it easy to install them and move them around without needing to take any extra tools out in the field, and also to prevent the need to pre-drill pilot holes in order to get the mounts screwed into the tree. Thanks for coming along, and I hope you enjoy the build. So here we're going to walk through the material selection and prep, cutting, setup, and welding to turn some cheap, scrap bits of steel into useful tools for the field. Towards the end, I'll also include some more of that GoPro footage that was captured after the build, if anyone wants to watch the critters play. Alright, so the material we're going to be using today is just some 3/8 hot roll round rod. You can get this at any hardware store for, I don't know, $6 or $7. We're going to be using some lag screws. These happen to be 5/16 by 4 inches long. And then some flat bar, 1/8 inch thick flat bar that's 2 inches wide. There's also just a scrap pieces I had laying around. So the first thing we're going to do is just get everything marked out. I'm doing 6 inches for the 3/8 inch round rod, 6-inch lengths. That'll serve as the T-handle. That will have the lag screw coming out at 90 degrees. And then for the lag screws, I'm just going to basically cut the heads off, so it's really not critical. Then here for the 2-inch flat bar, 2-inch wide flat bar, it just needs to be big enough to hold that GoPro shoe mount that has a sticky pad on the back. And so here I'm just marking off 2 inches, right around 2 inches. It's not terribly critical. It's just enough for that shoe to grab onto there. Then here we'll start the cuts on the bandsaw. I like to use a machinist type vise upside down to hold round stock like this, because if you try to just hold it with your hands, the saw blade can cause it to try to roll on you. It'll kind of grab into your fingers, and so I like to hold it in a vise like this. That's also why I have the guide up a little bit high. It's just so that the vise can slide underneath there. And we'll go through and make all these 6-inch cuts on the mark. I'll speed a lot of this up too. I won't belabor the point with it. We got that first one down, and we just crank through the other two. That's it. Got our 3 6-inch pieces. That was easy enough. Now we'll move one of those lag screws and just need to chop the heads off there. And so I'm again going to hold it in the vise, and you don't want to hold it parallel up like that, otherwise the saw blade will kind of snap it down onto the table right when it engages. So I just kind of push it down a little bit just for the lag screw to engage the table. As you can imagine, it will give you a bit of an angle to your cut, so you can put a little piece of shim stock under there if needed, but for this application it's really not critical, and it can also just be touched up on the belt sander to get that flat. The whole purpose here is just to get that hex head off. And this too, we'll speed this up here in a second, just to not belabor the issue. Alright, so those are done. And we'll move on to the flat bar next. So for this, the vise isn't really appropriate, and so I'm just going to use a push block. You can also see here I did scribe some full square lines on there just to help with the cutting, just to make sure it's cutting in the right direction. Also moving that guide down a little bit now that the vise is out of the picture, and then just going to use this wooden push block to slice these out into 2-inch segments. So it'll really be a 2x2 square, all said and done. That's it. All the material cut up, and now we're ready for some prep. Just to deburr, get those rough edges off. And so this too, a lot of this will be sped through. I'm just showing it for the sake of showing it. It's nice to have smooth, round edges on everything. It really is. Looks like more of a finished product when you do that. And one last little thing before the welding is we need to get the mill scale off of the hot roll, and then the zinc off of those lag bolts. And so here I'm using one of those paint strippers. Very handy for this. You can use whatever, I mean, you can use whatever sandpaper you have, grinding disc, it doesn't matter. But those paint strippers for mill scale, at least on smaller stuff like this, it's just so handy. So I did the end there, and then I'll do the middle where the lag bolt will join it, where it'll get it welded at 90 degrees, just to get all that mill scale off so we have nice clean welds. And same thing for the little 2-inch wide piece of flat bar, just on that center portion where it'll connect to get that mill scale off. And then here for those zinc plated lag bolts, the paint stripper, it'll work. It's not quite enough. It's not quite aggressive enough because you really want to get into the base metal. You need to get that zinc off when you're going to weld this stuff. Zinc it's bad for you and it's bad for the welds, and so you don't want to weld over zinc. And so here I just put a little Roll-Lock sanding disc on there, just to a little bit more aggressively get down to the base metal. Make sure I get all that zinc off, a good 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch away from the weld. That's it. So we're cut up, prepped for welding also, and then we're ready to weld out. Alright, so over here, you really can't see that lag strip. I got that square block in the way, but I use that aluminum block just to get it squared up, and here I'm just tacking the T-handle together. Just get a couple quick tacks on there, and then I'll weld it out. tack on the other side, just to make sure everything is squared up, stays squared up. Then I'll use that third hand tool just to, one, help hold it, but then also it helps the part to make better contact with the table. You get a better ground that way. I'll just make a couple passes on each of these, just going halfway, flip it, go the other half, and then that portion of it is done. The lag screw then, for the T-handle, that's complete at that point. Speed through the rest of these, at least for this part of it, just to not make it too boring. Hold that post flow on there, just to make sure you don't get any oxidation. Just makes your welds look better. Hold that post flow on for the last few seconds. I think it turned out all right. So with all the lag screws on there, we'll move on to welding the flat bar plates on there, the part that the GoPro is actually going to mount to. In order to do this, I'm using another little machinist vise. This one happens to have a V-groove in there. It's not completely necessary, but it really helps, because that way if you get it in the V-groove, and if you have it on two raised blocks like I have, you know that it's perfectly perpendicular to the table. And therefore it'll be perpendicular to the part. That just keeps everything perpendicular and square, and it makes it easy for little setups like this. So here you just see me tweaking it, just trying to get it adjusted in that V-groove, because it has the weld on there now. At this point, it's hard to get it to sit very well in that V-groove. This just gets everything nicely lined up. And same deal as before, pretty much. Just get a couple tacks on there and then we'll weld them out. Give it a little bend just to make sure things are squared up. When you tack it, it can certainly pull a little bit in one direction or the other, so you just go through it and kind of eyeball it at that point, just to make sure that things are nice and squared up. Again, for the things like this, it's just not critical to have everything completely perfect, but it's nice to try. We'll just kind of work around. I normally do, for round things like this, I tend to do it in thirds or quarters as I kind of work around it. It just makes it easier and neater that way, in my opinion. It makes your welds look a little bit better. And then, other than trying to do it, half at each time, you kind of get in a bind, especially in that last, few dabs. And so I just break it up into thirds and quarters. It's just preferable for me. It turned out pretty good. It can be tricky to weld small parts like that, especially when you're doing circular welds and small parts. It's always tough to get them to look great. I think they turned out all right. So same as before, we'll speed up the other two. I think folks got the idea of what's going on there. Alright, so it's the welding done on all three of them. Not too bad for, an hour or two's worth of work. Just some close-ups of the finished product here. And a quick coat of spray paint on each side, and that's about it. That's about it for the build of them. We'll do a little mounting and testing here in a second. Here they are. Paint's dry, and I guess I should call this the finished product. Ready to go, ready to install. And here the first one is on a tree. You can see I got this one in a little bit crooked. But that's kind of the idea. They just screw in like that, and you'll be able to mount the GoPro on top. Here it is with the GoPro on that same first tree with that sticky shoe on there. And of course the GoPro can be angled up and down. The shoe is on top of that little rotary type mount. Like you can see there, you see that little knob sticking off. So you can change the angle in that direction. And it just makes it so easy. You can move these mounts around. They should last. I don't see any reason that they wouldn't last. And it sure beats any store-bought contraption. It'd be expensive and probably cheap and junky, and they wouldn't last. It'd be difficult to move them around. And the whole point of this is just quick and easy, down and dirty. It's a mount that you can move around quickly and easily and not have to worry about it. Get real nice and low to the ground. So I'm happy with how they turned out, and really appreciate you guys coming along for the ride. And here at the end is a little more of that footage shot with the GoPro and the new mounts that I had promised before, if anyone wants to watch the critters play. I appreciate you guys coming along for this project. It was fun. Thanks for watching.